Good evening, sir. Nice to see you.
Good evening, Greta.
After listening to the two speeches by the President, Speaker of the House, do you think we are at all close to resolving this?
I thought that what was striking about the President's speech tonight is what he didn't say. He didn't say, I will veto a short-term extension of the debt limit. I thought that was significant. Other parts of the speech were very political, which I think you would expect. Everybody's trying to win the message war. But right now we've got a deadline. We need to get something done. The President needs to provide leadership, and I hope that he will. I hope that he'll step up, and if Congress can move something through this week, that he'll agree to sign it.
All right, two programs, two plans on the Hill, Speaker Boehner's and Senator Reid's. Speaker Boehner said this tonight about Senator Reid's. He said, in this week, while the Senate is struggling to pass a bill filled with phony accounting and Washington gimmicks, he then talks about his speech. That doesn't sound that the Republicans in the House of Representatives are the least bit interested in the Senator Reid's bill.
I think the key is what Republicans are interested in is real spending reduction, real spending reforms, entitlement reform. And those are all things that we're missing from Senator Reid's approach. I mean, Senator Reid has come up with what he says are $2.7 trillion in saving, but much of it, they are, as Speaker Boehner pointed out, gimmicks. They're phony savings. They're not real. And so I don't think that the Republicans, either the House or the Senate, are going to be for something that they don't view to be real, sincere effort, meaningful effort at trying to get spending and debt under control.
So how can we possibly be any place remotely near close? I mean, in Washington, everyone expects that when finally it comes down to the end, that something is worked out at the last minute's deadline. But you know, the two sides are so far apart, and it's extraordinary to me to think that anything could be worked out.
I don't think they're that far apart in Congress. I mean, I think that the Democrats would have to swallow to vote for the Boehner approach, a process by which you might get a result on entitlement reform. But we all agree that unless you do something about entitlements, you can't solve this budget mess.
And a budget amendment.
Well, and a vote on a balanced budget amendment, which really does sort of put the cut, cap, and balance proposal into effect. It just does it in increments as opposed to at one time, which is the vote we had last week. But I think Senator Reid and the Democrats would be well served to join us in acknowledging that you can't solve this budget problem unless you do something about Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, and what we call mandatory spending in the budget. And that's what the Boehner approach does, and that's what's missing from the Reid approach.
I think if Senator Reid were here, he'd say that it probably behooved you to join him. I mean, I think that's the whole problem. I mean, I mean, those are not like insignificant matters, like entitlement differences. That's not insignificant. The budget cap, budget amendment, that's not a insignificant difference either. I mean, these are not like small problems, not like nickels and dimes. This is ideology where people have very different views on how to solve it, and even you know, the Republicans want more of a structural change now.
Well, but I think that what you have to agree is, and I think the Democrats would agree to this too, that you can't really solve these structural budget problems that we have. I mean, we'll be right back here doing this again next year if we do Senator Reid's approach, because most of these savings are phony, until you tackle those entitlement programs. And what Speaker Boehner has done is at least put a proposal that would get you to a result on something that would address the long-term structural issue of entitlement reform. Now, having said that, I do believe that we can get there, at least I see a pathway there, if the President is agreeable to signing something short-term and not worrying about the politics of the next election, and instead focusing on the economy, which is what everybody says right now. We've got to focus on the economy if we don't fix this. And we can fix it, but I think it's going to require a willingness to accept a short-term solution followed by a process by which we can get to a result that would include entitlement reform, the big problem.
What do you think the American people think of this discussion? Do you think they're busy trying to put food on their table and not paying that much attention, or are they horrified at watching how the sausage is made?
Well, I think it's terribly frustrating if you talk to people, because they just want to see you work together. They want to see you get this thing done. They want to see you put the country first, put the economy first, and frankly, that's what we need to be doing right now. And we've got this deadline looming out there. Everybody agrees it would be a big mistake if we got to next Tuesday and hadn't fixed this. So I think in the best interest of the country, the American people, we need to come together. But it is going to require, in my view, a commitment on the part of Democrats who so far have been unwilling to commit to a process whereby you take on these big long-term issues.
Do you know if any Democrat who said let's take on entitlements?
You know, I think that most of them don't want to have that vote. I think they see it as a powerful
so then
political
we're back
issue.
to where we were. I mean, if you think entitlements is a necessity to gain this resolved, a real strong structural change which include entitlements, and Republicans say absolutely no, we're not going to vote for entitlement, any sort of structural change for entitlements, that really does put it at an impossible position, at an impasse.
I think what this does, though, and I don't like this, honestly, because I think Congress, we ought to be doing this. We haven't passed a budget in 800 days. I think what the American people think. I think the American people look at this and say, this is dysfunctional, it's broken, which is why we're talking about this special committee that would sit down. But it's bicameral. We had a
special committee. We had the Bowles-Simpson committee. I think the American people think that's fine. Let's have another committee. But you didn't pay attention to the last one.
This one, though, would have expedited consideration on the floor of the Senate, an up and down vote on their recommendations, and they would tackle this issue of entitlement reform. So I think it's something that we need to get done, but it's got to include, I think, that process, or it's going to be very difficult to get Republicans on board. Now, having said that, remember where we started. In April, the president wanted a clean debt limit vote. He has come a long ways, and I think that's because Republicans have driven him there to address not just the debt limit, but the real problem, which is the debt.
Senator, thank you, sir.
Thanks, Greta.